Hello everybody and welcome back. I'm Will Dragon and this is our playthrough on Suzerain. We are the president of Swordland and we are trying to bring the country, well, out of recession is the first point. But things are getting to the point where the decisions I've gone and made, the results are coming to bear. So we'll see what happens. The Women's Rights March, there was one of those. I think we read all these at the end of the last session. The resettlement order was issued. Some people believe that is against the Constitution and above his powers. I've said it several times. I want to destroy the special zone. Oh, these guys have gone and made more nuclear weapons, which is just fantastic. Okay, nothing else on the go for that one. Let's have a quick read of the news. The fight against the BFF continues in Bergia. This is about the Relocation Act. Governor of Bergia issues resettlement order. And Special Zone declares war on Bludish people. Yep. Have all condemned this authoritarian policy, which is reminiscent of the worst practices of the oppressive regimes. I really want to take the Special Zone away. Because, like I keep saying, it's like I've got a small country inside my country doing whatever it wants. And, yeah, I don't know. But anyway, we have a briefing on the current economic situation, which, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to enjoy this. We have a -9 government budget so far. The team gathered in Hullsword at the Ministry of Economy to go over the current economic situation. The building was constructed in 1892 by Heron Walt, possibly the most famous architect in Swordland. It was a simple and elegant structure with a few of his signature domes spread out over the roof. I walked through the large bronze doors. Two assistants led me upstairs to a meeting room. So many people. We have Simon Hull, Gus Manga, co-chairman of the NBC, the business people, David and Edith, who is the chairman of the central bank. Welcome, Mr. President. It's good to be here. Well, I really don't think it's going to be good to be here. As you all know, today we'll go over our economic status. Let's begin without any further ado. How are we doing in terms of our infrastructure? Success of the first infrastructure project is already showing a positive effect on the economy. Mikhail started grinning as he leaned forward. That'd be this guy? Yep. Thanks to the high-speed railway, our two most important cities are linked faster. We are expecting quick economic growth in Greater Hullsword and Gelsland. The Business Council is satisfied with the infrastructure improvements. It was a gargantuan effort from our side in the Ministry of Economy. The efforts are noted. Everyone who has contributed is greatly appreciated. Other results show that we are on the right path towards economic growth. We can do much more to improve the economy, and we will because our work is far from over. Your efforts are noted. Let's take the victory. Teamwork makes the... I cannot believe they put that in the game. I just cringed inside. Anyway, never ever have I seen one person accomplish what many could together. Our trade with other countries increased slightly below our expected growth rate due to the failed negotiations. Well, yes, that happened. Unfortunate, really. We don't need other countries. Swordland is enough itself. The responsibility falls on me. Don't blame yourself. David took a sip from his tea. On a side note, consumer spending has decreased further due to a pessimistic mood caused by our economic issues. I'm confident we will turn this mood around with the adaptive projects and solutions. Good to hear. We will do better. While I agree that our first attempts were not successful, we still might have economic opportunities left. It isn't good for our reputation. The people expected quick solutions. We are running out of time. The central bank has begun working on a bill with the Grand National Assembly to increase our preparedness for future damaging economic incidents. The issues surrounding the energy prices and the imbalance they cause in the market are also of pressing concern. Average citizens and businesses are suffering. After the Central Bank Reinforcement Act, our focus will shift to primarily tackle the energy inflation crisis in the country. We will present a bill about this in the near future if the situation regresses. The NBC will also lend support to the analysis and contingency plans regarding the ongoing developments. I'm looking forward to further collaboration between our departments to solve upcoming issues. Simon checked his large dossier. Our treasury is in a dangerous amount of debt. True. If we don't reduce our debt in the future, we might fall in a debt crisis or worse. What are your suggestions on tackling this? I will work on some proposals regarding taxes to generate further revenues. As per the latest data from the ministry, the recession unfortunately seems to be lingering still in some economic areas. No matter the cost, we will have to increase our economic development rates, otherwise I am sad to say that we will be doomed. We need to use the opportunities we have been given. Trade deals and infrastructure improvements always help. Mr. President, I will be very clear. Simon took off his glasses and put them on the table. He looked at me straight in the eye. You already know this, and I don't want to frighten you, but if we are unable to stop this recession, we are heading towards an economic catastrophe that has never been seen before in Swordland. No, in all of Eastern Macopa. I can't even begin to imagine how we could survive that. None of us wants to see Swordish people starve while the state is unable to provide for its citizens. We will end the recession, I promise. I hope you are right. He put on his glasses. He's now back to being just an economy minister, not a superhero. Now, there are a few methods we can use to tackle the recession. Our debt situation is awfully bad, and I heavily advise against further expenditures. However, I will still present new projects and leave the decision to you, Mr. President. There are two main distinctions between these projects. It's either about continuing our infrastructure improvements or investing in increasing production. If we continue working on our infrastructure, that would lift us up to advanced country levels. However, our industrial production also needs a boost to return to pre-recession levels. There is, of course, the option to not take any risks related to our budget. The plans for these projects will be finalized soon. For now, I can provide preliminary information. Which one would you like to hear first? Infrastructure. For infrastructure, we have two projects. One is the Benfey International Airport, and the other is the Morna Port. Morna. Which one's Morna? Ah, this one. Which... Okay. I'm thinking airport, to be honest. Benfey is growing at a rapid pace and would benefit highly from an international airport. Much more money to be made there too. The monoport will boost trade and improve the flow of goods towards Holsword. Because the Conriat port is too small in capacity, an extension is blocked by the Navy headquarters. Would be better utilized. I think so. I don't think investing in Morna with a port would do much to change our economic prospects. Goods are flowing from other places just as fast. Increased imports and exports on a more accessible path to Holsword is very lucrative in my opinion. Time is money. I agree with Edith. The monoport will mean a great deal to our trade and improve the economy of the Lorraine region too. What are the projects that could boost our production? For production, we have two projects. One is the Sana Agricultural Zone, and the other is the Conriat Industrial City. I see the Sana Agricultural Zone investment as a higher priority due to the fact that farmers in Bergia were the most hit by the recession. Sana also is a much poorer city than Conriat. Sana, okay, being down here. Yes, let's boost Bergia. The Conriat Industrial City project has the potential to increase manufacturing in the Greater Holsword region by a large amount. Sana is a much poorer region. The recession has hit the farmers of Sana particularly hard. Besides, the agricultural output increase would boost our economy. The investment won't be able to recover the industry there. Conriat, on the other hand, would bring more financial gain. Our government has the opportunity to support agriculture, and we should take it. It would increase our exports too. Of course, he, shock and horror, supports that one, rural development. Very well. That covers our subjects for today. I have a couple more economy-related questions. How strong is our currency? Currency health and economic output degraded significantly and nearly crashed the Swordish Ren. Our currency is on the course to actually crash if we don't act. Catastrophic losses in our financial strength are observed at the central bank, especially compared to pre-election levels. Inflation has increased by 20 percentage points year on year this quarter. How's the mood at the National Business Council? Business leaders in the council are nervous about the lack of tangible economic improvements in the country. They are holding on to their investments until they feel it is safe to invest their reserves in new hires or branches. Our trade situation. Our inability to reach a trade deal has hurt our position as a regional trade partner countries were looking to. This has caused some imports and exports to drop and has led to some worry in the trade center, which makes it harder to find new trade partners. Thank you for the information. That concludes the meeting. Have a good day all. Goodbye. Until next time. Toodaloo. See you soon. Tally-ho. I mean, what about... You know, we've got a beautiful country of Lesbia right here, who I'm sure would be a massive trade partner. I mean, their GDP is 5th. Their military is overwhelming. Are we still neutral with these guys? We are. Military is equivalent. Agnolia, still neutral. We have still cheap steel imports, but they're obviously not going to be too happy about much else. You are probably not neutral. No, we are very unfriendly. Well, just unfriendly, actually. Let's not make things worse than they need to be. Right, let's go have a look at our places. Estord. Estord's locals bear the brunt of high energy prices. Putting the pinch as the cost of essential utilities skyrockets. That's not good. Reports from our border city indicates that the polio outbreak in Welland has been moving towards Swordland. Specifically, there have been a sharp increase in cases in rural Suzerain and nearby villages. Our professionals have been dispatched to curb the infections by quarantining the patients. There are currently 23 active cases. Well, you know, oh, hello. Operation Bear Trap. Welland has declared the launch of Operation Bear Trap against the separatist militant group known as the Bluish Freedom Front. Wow. Protest against Governor Bron's resettlement order. Shock and horror, there's been a massive protest against the resettlement order. It was volatile, and it is recommended that the government engage in dialogue with all parties to diffuse tensions. I would love to. Pro-Bluish protest. Governor of Bergia, Felix Bron, reports that a large group of students gathered in protest in downtown Dare. Urson versus Swordland case. The landmark court filing has been appealed to the Court of Appeals today and is under review by the Ministry of Justice. The lawyer and Bluish civil rights activist Ishval Urson sued Governor Felix Bron for the infringement of the constitutional rights of equality before the law. The case questions the separate legal treatment of the Bluish in Dare by extension the whole of Bergia. Claims that the Articles 6 and 7 of the Constitution, as well as the institution of the special zone, are in direct conflict with the Constitution and thus allows the separate treatment of the Bluish in all of Bergia and beyond. What do we still have? Our Republic of Agnolia. Prime Minister Van Horten warned us about the increasing naval presence of Vagsland in the Markian Sea. He showed his wishes to have a stronger naval cooperation with Swordland in the future. Well, then he shouldn't have been so ridiculously demansive when things were going on. ERA bill proposed in Holsword. The Grand National Assembly in Holsword has drafted the Energy Inflation Reduction Act in response to the recent surge in energy prices. The bill proposes a temporary price cap on gas prices, bilateral agreements with energy-rich countries, and the expansion of domestic energy production. We do need to sort out our energy... Oh, hang on. Just before we jump forward, we have 11 news articles. Energy crisis looms over Swordland. Yep. Addressing energy inflation. Yep. Ishval Urson versus Governor Bron. Housewives march to defend Swordish tradition in Anrika. Spearheaded a march for so-called education equality in Anrika. A group of self-proclaimed happy housewives led a counter-protest. Their argument is that putting girls out of handicrafts classes and forcing them into science classes alongside boys would be an affront to Swordish tradition. Energy prices on the rise for Swordish consumers. Central bank bill, a necessary measure. The Central Bank Reinforcement Act, currently under consideration, could be a key measure in fortifying Swordland's national currency and overall economy. Ishval Urson is right. Of course, protesters brutally beat him. Oh. More evidence of Anton Rain's hateful campaign against the Bluish people. 4 student protests in Dare were savagely beaten by police officers as they attempted to demonstrate against the administration's anti-Bluish policies. Well, that doesn't look good on me. Operation Bear Trap begins. Watchtower of Human Rights said that they will be following the developments closely for any infraction on human rights violations. Amid spiking tensions with Agnolia, Vagsland increases naval presence. Swordland's diplomacy disappoints. Yes, we made 0 deals. There was no way I was going to make a deal with Welland. They were like, just so unbelievably dodgy. England was a little bit disappointing. But they asked too much. They asked too much. There are several investment projects outlined which we could start. Office of the President of Swordland, Maroon Palace, meeting on the escalation tensions in Bergia. Very much so. Nia Morgner and Lilius Graf. Thank you for being here at this hour, Mr. President. We need to inform you about some news from Bergia. There is a court case initiated by a Bludish citizen which involves a possible revision of the Constitution. Unfortunately, it has the potential to affect the whole country. Explain, please. I'll start from the beginning. As you know, after the discovery of KA-74s in separatist hideouts, there have been more than a few attacks initiated and claimed by the BFF. Due to the lack of security funding, some of these, otherwise avoidable, attacks couldn't be stopped. Wow, someone's not bitter at all. This led to some increase in the tensions in Bergia. Lilius sighed. The main problem is with the security structure of Bergia. Due to the special status of the region, operations on the ground are run by local security forces that are not bound to the interior, which means my hands are tied. However, with the rising tensions after Operation Bear Trap, we have also been receiving more and more intelligence about some kind of preparation by the terrorists. We can't allow the conflict in Welland to spread to Swordland, and we know that the Welland and Swordland divisions of the BFF are in close cooperation. That is precisely why I didn't make a deal with Welland. That was the right decision. But it didn't seem to have stopped the tensions from increasing. Their war against the BFF has bolstered their resolve inside our country. The increasing threat of the BFF led Governor Braun to justifiably resort to his emergency powers to curb the danger. His discovery of militant training grounds disguised as schools was commendable, as well as his quick handling of bomb threats coming from major cities like Dare. However, his latest policies have been questionable, especially the peaceful resettlement order. It has been met with massive anger from the majority of the Bloods in the region. That is a massive understatement. Governor Braun has abused his powers and clearly acted against the Constitution. And quite surprisingly, Ishval Urson has managed to successfully push his case to the higher courts. He is suing Felix Braun for infringing upon the liberties of Bludish people. He also raises a conflict in the Constitution and argues that the way it is written makes it open to interpretation and allows people like Governor Braun to abuse their powers. What does he claim about the conflict in the Constitution? As you know, the Rights and Liberties Article 7 alludes to are described in Article 100 in further detail. All citizens, in theory, can exercise their rights described in these articles and are equally subject to law as described. And these rights cannot be suspended by the government under any circumstances other than a defensive war. Mr. Urson claims the line, "Every sword is equal before the law." These articles and are equally subject. Okay. In Article 7 does not include other ethnicities and thus gives the state the right to suspend or limit the rights of non-swords defined in Article 100. Courts have repeatedly protected Governor Braun in the past, and it is true that he bets on Mr. Hawker justifying his actions through Article 7. However, there is also Article 6, which the courts could have taken into account already. And what is the problem with Article 6? As you know, Article 6 goes, everyone who is bound to the Swordish state by citizenship is a sword, which clarifies clearly that the Constitution does not discriminate against other ethnicities or cultures. Citizens of this country are called swords. But did you ask Bludish people what they think? Yes, it's true that this article has protected them on a number of occasions, as it defines sword as a non-ethnic term, but it is left up to the interpretation of the courts. It's true that this article has protected them on a number of occasions, as it defines sword as a non-ethnic term, yes, but it is left up to the interpretation of the courts. They could have argued that Article 6 extends the rights defined in Article 7 to all citizens of Swordland regardless of race, but they didn't, yet. They can potentially push this case to the Supreme Court. Who is Ishval Urson? Is a lawyer and Bludish rights activist. He lives in Dare and has experienced the systematic racism in the region firsthand. He was evicted last month from his home in Dare on the grounds of threatening public stability and safety. He was also shot at by local law enforcement forces several times in the last 2 years and managed to survive it all so far. The attackers, of course, were never punished. As much as the eviction seems unjust, Mr. Urson must be further investigated for his potential ties to dangerous organizations. I'd like to believe the forces wouldn't have fired at him without proper reason. You'd like to believe the police are getting out of control under your management. What they're going through is unacceptable. That we must What exactly is this case about? Ishval Urson is claiming that the current constitution gives illegal grounds to discriminate against Bluish people, directly infringing upon their rights as citizens. He claims Article 7 of the Constitution, citing the line, "Every sword is equal before the law," is in direct conflict with the freedoms and rights defined in Article 100. Governor Felix Braun is accused of using Article 7 to justify his oppression of the Bluish community. What are the accusations? Pretty sure exactly what he's gone and said. Mr. Braun has sadly evicted thousands of Bloods from their homes in Dyer recently. The fact that this happened in a city with relatively low levels of BFF activity is a sloppy decision at best. A sloppy decision, this is a direct violation of their right to property. The BFF activity levels have nothing to do with this. But it does, Miss Morgner. The state can take any measures to fight with terror inside its borders. The decision would have been justified if those neighborhoods were in fact labeled as threat level red. But they were not. Hence, he did not have the authority to evict those citizens. In this case, in Dyer, the governor has definitely violated his authority. You are underplaying it. This eviction was only the last of the many he ordered as part of Bergier's peaceful resettlement policies. This is not about Dyer. There are hundreds of accusations listed in this case, ranging from violent actions by law enforcement officers to open discrimination in local municipalities. Calm down, Nia dear, I'm not disagreeing with you. Nia stacked the papers in front of her. In any case, the situation might be troubling if it reaches the Supreme Court and Mr. Hawker manages to sabotage it by altering the current interpretation. It would be disastrous for Bluish rights. I will be doing my best to ensure a positive result comes out of this case, but I'm not sure if the centrists would be willing to agree with Mr. Urson. Why would Mr. Hawker even sabotage it? The current interpretation is strictly solist. I'm sure he will follow the Constitution and charge Governor Braun for unconstitutional behavior. According to the foundational values of this republic, everyone who is a citizen of this country is a sword. The Constitution is clear about this and does not allow for discrimination. Maybe Hawker is not the man you think he is, Miss Graff. From what I've heard, his stance on this subject may not be the standard solist interpretation, but something darker. I'm afraid he will reject the case altogether and find Governor Braun innocent. If this happens, it would make discrimination against Bluish people legal. Isn't there anything I can do? I'm afraid not, Mr. President. The executive has no jurisdiction over the judiciary. And in this case, I'm afraid even Justice Edmonds and the centrists would be almost impossible to convince. To be honest, I don't think this is a matter for our administration. We must keep out from judicial affairs. As much as I hate to say it, I somewhat agree with Lilius on this. I prefer to keep the status quo over risking a complete abolishment of rights. We still have the power to make tangible reforms. What if we can convince Justice to agree with Urson? Wouldn't that give us precedent to change said articles of the Constitution? You must put pressure on the system and block this case from reaching the Supreme Court, Miss Morgner. You shouldn't meddle in the judiciary. There is, however, something that the government can do to address the situation on the ground. It is time we push for a change within the security structure of Bergier and the special status that resulted in de facto autonomy. It clearly isn't working. I believe we are aligned on this matter, Mr. President. You asked me to explore options regarding the revocation of the special zone at the beginning of our term. Given the possible circumstances, I think it is now possible. It's great to hear. Tell me the details. The resettlement policies in Bergier and the Urson case have changed the mood of the lawmakers. We can use this opportunity to push for the removal of Tarquin Sol's security zone decree. It is a much bigger possibility than before. Of course, racism is rampant throughout our country, but Bluish citizens inside Bergier are having a much worse time than the Bluish residents of cities like Lachavan or Holsord. If we focus on Bergier, we can remove its special status. This alone would be a huge step for Bluish rights. Unfortunately, as long as Governor Braun is in charge of Bergier, with the powers he has, no judicial reforms would reverse the situation on the ground. To put it simply, we want to work on a detailed proposal to restructure Bergier. I believe it must become a region of Swordland like any other. We must centralize the system and abolish the local security forces. I don't agree with changing the structure in Bergier now. Nope. Are you sure we can revoke the special status? We can't be sure of anything, Mr. President. You know this better than me. But Lilius and I both believe there is potential to get more MPs behind the idea. It is true some members of my circle inside the party are keen on this as well. They are starting to believe Sol's policy on Bergier has already run its course. Well, Mr. President, with a strong enough proposal and some judiciary support, your current powers might be just enough to be able to enact this decree as well. In any case, I think it is also possible to get this through the Assembly. If we play our cards right during the process of this case, while we work on preparation of a strong proposal for the special zone, we can gather enough support behind it. We have to try. Okay, let's hear about the proposal. Me and I both agree that we need to abolish the special zone of Bergia. This is the first point that the proposal will address. This would also mean taking away the special authority of the governor. I agree with removing the governor as well as his insane authority, but I don't support a complete centralization of the region. I propose that we restructure the special zone, democratize it, and acknowledge the Bluedish movement. How does that resolve anything? How do you solve any problem by dividing the region from the rest of Swordland? We've tried that already. Replacing a special zone with another one wouldn't help anyone. My proposal is very simple. The special zone must be fully revoked, governor's powers taken away, and the local security forces must be abolished. Only then Bergia can be an equal part of Swordland. I propose we unite Bergia with the rest of Swordland and enforce the same laws and policies as any other Swordish region, dismantling the current semi-independent security structure in the process. We will hold local municipal elections just like every city in Swordland, and the security of the region will be under the full control of the Ministry of the Interior. We can no longer allow their forces to pursue violence with impunity. If this was a problem that the central government could fix, your mighty colonel would have solved it already. The assimilation policies clearly didn't work. I'm just saying the solution is not a rushed unification. We must acknowledge that Bergia is a unique region with its own culture and history. We cannot disregard the social reality. I also want to hear Miss Morgner's proposal before deciding. Millions of Bluedish people suffering over the last decades. We saw a massive uprising, terror attacks, and a governor going rogue. These people only wanted to live in this country as equals, but they were denied that. Why don't we allow Bergians to elect their own local governor? Why is Wholesword so keen on prying into the lives of the Bluedish people? We should replace the oppressive laws of the special zone with a democratic system that allows for proper local representation. I propose the Bergia semi-autonomous region. I'm sorry to tell you, Miss Morgner, but Bergia is part of Swordland as much as Angland or Wholesword. You're bringing successionist Betif Eljad's lifelong quest here as your proposal. What's wrong with you? What's next? Secession of Bergia and a formation of an independent Bluedish state? Autonomy for Angland? And why don't you hold a referendum for the Rums of Estord and ask them if they want to join Rumburg while you're at it? Yeah, they shouldn't be treated any differently at all, I don't think. So it's decided then. I can start work on the proposal as soon as possible. You can get to work immediately. I'm counting on you. Yes. This is a mistake. I will start working on the proposal immediately. It's very important to get this right, so it will take some time. My estimate is that it will be ready sometime after the vote on your constitutional amendments. You can choose to enact it then. I'm counting on you. I'll get to work. See you later. And they left the room. Okay. Situation's updated. There are surging energy prices, which is going to be a bad thing. It's certainly not going to be a good thing. Gassam downsizing, a sign of troubling times. Swordland's energy giant Gassam has started downsizing its operations, sending ripples of concern across the nation. As branches close and employees face redundancy, questions are raised about the future stability of our energy sector and the wider economy. Interesting. We gave them money so they could tap more resources. The cost of neglect, the sharp rise in energy prices, and the ensuing market instability signal a looming energy crisis. A rising star in United Contana. With the United Containers growing steadily, sparking speculation about a potential leadership reshuffle in the distant future. Lackavan. Surge in energy prices alarms NBC. Yes, that's not good. It's not good at all. And a potential investment in one more mega project. Oh! Ministry of the Economy has put forward 4 bold plans for investment projects, with each aiming to solve different issues ranging from production to infrastructure. The 4 available investments are Benfi International Airport, Morna Seaport, Conriat Industrial Zone, and Sana Agricultural Zone. It's going to cost me a -2 net government budget, which I really shouldn't spend. However, you all know that's not going to stop me. I'm pretty sure I'm going to bankrupt this country, and this is all going to go horribly wrong. But I believe, ladies and gentlemen, it's not the smart thing to do, but I believe. I have faith in Swordland. I'm going to go start an agricultural zone. -2 to the budget. Alright then. The Swordish energy inflation crisis. The sudden surge in... Oh, wow. In energy prices and market instability have sparked concerns among investors and analysts about the resilience of Swordland's economy. Swordland now stands at the precipice of a severe energy inflation crisis. This heightened uncertainty has led to speculative investment, a potential decrease in foreign direct investment, and the risk of a consequential economic slump. These developments could have a domino effect on the Swedish economy, impacting its financial markets and overall socio-economic stability. Oh wow, I have absolutely no choices. And, oh, there you go. That tipped down and tipped back up. We're in even worse debt. Central Bank Reinforcement Act. It tends to bolster the strength and stability of Swordland's national currency and bolster the overall economic. Section 1 mandates the accumulation of foreign exchange reserves. By buying foreign currencies, especially those of Swordland's main trading partners, the central bank can exert more control over the value of our currency. Section 2 outlines the adoption of a prudent fiscal policy. By reducing the national debt and limiting budget deficits, the country can present itself as a more stable economic entity. Proposes this will cost us -1 government budget. Proposes increased legal and information support for industries with high export potential, such as our emerging electronics sector in Gelsord, wine production in Borin, and pharmaceutical manufacturing in Lakoven. Sign. Okay, that is the last thing I spend our money on, unless I think it's actually going to massively turn our growth around. Central Bank Act, a stronghold for Swordland. Op-ed, a misguided attempt at control. From the desk of the Ventry City Free Trade Committee, this comes a warning. The signing of the Central Bank Reinforcement Act is a blow to free market principles. Alright, budget allocation of healthcare. I was having my afternoon tea in the State House office in Dare and going through newspapers. One of the headlines piqued my interest. It read polio crisis in Welland. Before I could start reading, I heard a couple of knocks. Pascal entered, followed by Lucian. Mr. President, it's time for the scheduled healthcare meeting. Good afternoon. Please take your seats. They have taken their seats, and Pascal produced documents from his suitcase. He put them on the table. Pascal looked at the newspaper I was reading. Very troubling news from Welland, Mr. President. I have just returned from a meeting with our top scientists on the matter of polio. It seems to be spreading. What are we doing to prepare? We have notified all of our healthcare staff, especially the ones closer to Welland border. Unfortunately, these are also the more rural areas where we lack equipment and staff. What I was told by our researchers was that with the current infection rate, there will soon be millions of people affected by polio. We need to be ready for any possibility. Regardless, back to topic. Pascal puts on his reading glasses and went through the documents. He didn't say anything for a whole minute. Mr. Bennywall. Yes, of course. Let's start. He put the papers down, cleared his throat, and looked at me. In general, I am very content with the budget decision that was made. This comes as a very pleasant surprise that we all welcomed at the ministry. The overall mood has been positive as the administration focuses more on the healthcare. I'm excited about what we can achieve with the allocated funds. We have to minimize service disparity in the country. The situation isn't good at all. I'm personally invested to solve the horrible infant and maternal death rates along with your requests. As you know, I've been preparing a new privatization program that would create funds through selling off unused ministry property and some extra taxes. It might not go against our strategy to promote a market economy, but I'm personally against privatization of government services. Such vital services must be under state control. Aside from creating additional funds, there is a long-term problem with privatization in a country like Swordland. Also in a country where most people don't have access to quality healthcare. I do agree that there is some concern there, but the benefits of competitive and quality services is greater. This is not Arcasia or Lepsia. You are talking about Swordland, in which the healthcare is free for now. We have people who have their lives depending on a service that is free to them. Messing with that structure will definitely hurt us politically in the future, that I know for sure, but the choice is yours. We'll keep healthcare in state control. As you wish, the health services shall remain in public hands. Now let's get to the big question of how we will spend the extra funds. I urge you to consider these proposals. We could build new hospitals where necessary, divert funds to increase the salaries of our health workers, or invest in enhancing the existing treatment facilities in rural areas. Each of these options presents a unique path towards improving healthcare access and quality in Swordland. It would prevent mistreatment, disease, and sickness. The sad reality is that our rural clinics are woefully outdated, ill-equipped, and understaffed. This stark disparity between urban and rural healthcare is a major contributor to the high maternal mortality rates and prevalence of other diseases in our rural communities. Which could be what kicks us in the teeth with polio, in my opinion. Addressing this issue is one of my key objectives in this term, and I believe an overhaul of the rural healthcare infrastructure is a critical step in that direction. We're seeing an uptick in minor outbreaks in specific regions. It's largely due to outdated facilities that lack proper hygiene standards and equipment. We can proceed with the decision, Mr. Bennywell. This is what I want. In my book, The Unfortunate Man, I depicted the hardships of a poor mining family, a vivid illustration of the stark health inequalities in our society. As Minister of Health, I strive to rectify these disparities. Therefore, I believe improving treatment in rural areas should be our course of action. It would be best to consider the political advantages of each one, as well as the practical advantages for making a decision. Improve rural treatment. Because I don't want these to become hubs of polio outbreaks. New contracts for improvements will be drawn up immediately. Well, that wraps up our discussion for now. Very well, fruitful meeting nevertheless, nice and short. Thank you for the meeting. Pascal gathered his documents and left along with Lucian. Situation updated. Quality rural health services. Beautiful. Quality rural health services have been introduced. Inaccessible rural education. That should change soon, as should inconsistent curriculum. So our welfare should actually look really nice. For our police, corruption is being dealt with. Organized crime and dispute with the governor of Bergia are being dealt with. Diplomacy, yep, we have some problems. This is my biggest concern, surging energy prices. Economy, now this has so many problems. Unemployment crisis, small business stagnate, decreased trade volume. Bergia, economy plummets. Lorraine, rust belt. Is experiencing a rapid decline due to a lack of investment. England lacks investment as well. So we've got a lot of places lacking investment. But, we do have a few bonuses coming in as well. And in our law, our problems are limited women's rights and unfair electoral funding, which we actually went and caused. So in the news, what do we have? Thousands protest the new governor of Helgeland. Thousands in Helgeland took to the streets in protest of the Agnolian governor's increasing control over Helgeland's administration following the appointment of a new governor. Well, that's not good. Experts say that the increasing tension between Agnolia and Vauxland prompted the Agnolian authorities to make the decision with an aim to increase their control over the island. That is not good, indeed. The Republic of Wellen. Chief of the Armed Forces, Valken Kruger, reported that the Wessex Armed Forces are moving north towards the town of Vernon. On their way, many Bluetish villages were assaulted, and the initial reports indicate a high death toll. As they are approaching closer to the border, Wessex Army's movement will be observed closely. Many displaced refugees from the battles have been seen moving towards the Swordish border. Talks with Friends Richter on the upcoming vote. Okay. That, ladies and gentlemen, is where we are going to leave it. Oh, our economy has crashed once again. So, yeah, I think I've played too much into hope, and I am basically going to lead the country to an economic implosion, basically. So, yeah, so that's, we're going to love that note. We're going to leave the episode there. That is all we have time for. Thank you all very much for joining me. I hope you have enjoyed it. Hopefully, good feelings will get us through. I have to immediately stop spending, so there will be no more spending of the budget. hopefully our economy will start to bounce back. I mean, obviously the fact that I spent everything when it came to making changes for the good of the people, which I probably shouldn't have done, has not gone unhelped. But, hey, like I said, we'll see what happens. And so until next time, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all very much for joining me. I hope you have enjoyed it. And until we see you again, I hope that you will stay safe, happy, and healthy.